Shalom, everyone. I hope everyone's having a wonderful, enjoyable summer. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rav Rafi Rosenblum, and I started teaching at Tisha this past year, and I would love to be able to share with you an idea that's related to this time of the year. The Gemara in Yuma Daf Tes Amud Beis 9b tells us that the first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because the Jews at the time were performing the three cardinal sins. They're performing idolatry, adultery, and murder. All three big averos. That caused the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash. The second Beis Hamikdash, the Gemara says, was not destroyed for those reasons. The Jews were not doing those three averos. The Jews were acting very nicely at performing all the mitzvos and everything. And why was the Beis Hamikdash destroyed? So the Gemara tells us because the Jews had sinas chinam, they had baseless hatred towards one another. And the Gemara says not only was the Beis Hamikdash destroyed, but that the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash was worse than the first one, and the sinas chinam caused it that it has not yet been rebuilt after over 1,000 years already. Why is it so bad? What is the tremendous avera involved with sinas chinam? When there's hatred towards one another, why is that such a glaring avera that it's on par at least with the three big averos that it caused the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash? So I think to answer this question, we can use something that the Maharal writes in a number of places. The Maharal writes that the Beis Hamikdash had two purposes. Number one, the Beis Hamikdash was a place for Hashrat Hashchina, a place that the Hashem's presence can rest, could be found. The pasuk says, "Vasuli mikdash v'shachanti besocham." Make for me a mikdash, and I will dwell amongst you. That by building the Beis Hamikdash, it's a place for Hashem's presence to be found in this world. That's reason number one for having a Beis Hamikdash. Reason number two, that the Mikdash was a place of achdus, a place to unify the Jewish people. We know that the Jews were commanded 3 times a year to be ola regel, to come up to the Beis Hamikdash. The nashim, the anashim, and the taf, the men, the women, the children, everyone was obligated to come to the Beis Hamikdash 3 times a year. It's a place of achdus. Prior to the building of the Beis Hamikdash, the Jews were able to bring a carbon in their own backyard. They could build a bama, they could build a private mizbeach. But once the Beis Hamikdash was created, every Jew who wanted to bring a carbon, a sacrifice to Hashem, had to come to the Beis Hamikdash. It's a place of unity, it's a place of achdus. So based on this Maharal, we can understand why sinas chinam would cause the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. If the Jews are not acting nicely with one another, if they are hating, if there's hatred, baseless hatred between one Jew and another Jew, so then obviously the unity that was engendered by the Beis Hamikdash would go for naught. It was unnecessary. It wouldn't have the necessary the effect that it was, the desired effect that it should have had. So therefore, that aspect of the Beis Hamikdash wasn't relevant. And in terms of the Hashras Hashchina, the presence of Hashem, Hashem's presence is only found if the Jews have unity. The pasuk in Iyov says, "V'hu ba'achad umi yeshivenu." It doesn't say "hu echad umi yeshivenu." It doesn't say that He is one. It says "hu be'echad," that God is be'echad, in one. When is God? Where is God found? Where is Hashem found? Be'echad, when there's unity, when there is achdus amongst the Jewish people. So unfortunately, at the time of the Beis Hamikdash, when the Jews were not performing the achdus as they should have, or they were not together, they were not unified as a nation. So therefore, there was no need for the Beis Hamikdash, because there was no need for achdus. There was no aspect of achdus of Bnei Yisrael, and there was no makom of Hashras Hashchina, because Hashem says, "I'm only going to rest my Shechina in the Beis Hamikdash." So we see the tremendous effect that sinas chinam has, that it takes away the achdus of the Jewish people, and that causes Hashem's Shechina to depart. But it's not only on a global level that achdus has a positive effect for the Jewish people, but even on an individual level, achdus has a tremendous effect, a tremendous positive effect for all of us. The Dubna Magid gives the following mashal. He says, imagine a person who wants to build his house. He wants to build a tremendous house, but unfortunately for him, he doesn't have enough money to build that house. So he decides he's going to borrow material from people to build his house. But instead of borrowing it from one person, he says, I'll borrow material from many different people. And he goes to one person and he borrows a few beams. And he goes to another person and he borrows a few bricks. And another person he borrows insulation. And all the things of his house are borrowed from a number of different people. And he builds his house, and it's a beautiful, magnificent house. The time comes to pay back the loan, and the man still doesn't have all the money that he needs. So the people come to collect all their material that they've donated to the building of this house. They show up at the house, and they see this beautiful, magnificent palace, and instead of destroying the house for a few beams, destroying the house for a few bricks, they decide amongst themselves, we'll just wait, we'll collect our money when the man is able to pay. One day, a few months later, the man decides he wants to do a little renovation, shiputzim. So he knocks down part of his house, and he's renovating it. And when that time comes that he knocks his house down, all of the people who have lent him material come to collect their stuff. They say, now that the house is knocked down, we don't feel so badly about taking our bricks, about taking our beams. So the same thing, the Dubna Magid writes, the same thing goes with the Jewish people. We all have sins, we all have averos that we've done, and Hashem says, when you guys are all together, I'm not going to collect from you for the sins, for the averos that you have done. But at the moment that we knock down that unity, that we do not perform, that we do not have achdus like we should, so Hashem says, now it's time that I can come and collect my debt. So it's a very important thing that we should try to work on, having achdus as a klal for the Jewish people, to have the Beis HaMikdash, and on an individual level for ourselves, that we want to make sure that Hashem says, I'm not going to collect my debt right now. So what can we do? How can we fix this? How can we fix this lack of achdus? So let me. I want to share two stories with you, both having to do with Ahavas Yisrael, Ahavas Chinam, with loving our Jewish brothers and sisters. Story number one is a story about Rav Yechezkel Sarna, who was the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshivas Chevron in Yerushalayim. And this story takes place towards the end of his life. He was an older man, and it was a little bit hard for him to walk. But one Motzei Shabbos, he decided that he wanted to go to yeshiva to daven with a minyan. And he's walking to the yeshiva, and he's getting closer. It's very difficult, so he's taking a long time. And he gets to the stairs, and he takes one stair, and he takes a rest. And then he walks up another stair, and he takes a rest. And then a third stair, and a fourth stair, and a fifth stair. And he's halfway up the stairs when he realizes that the shul, that the minyan in yeshiva, is already in the middle of Mariv. They've already started davening, and he's going to have to go daven somewhere else. But instead of turning around and walking down the stairs very slowly and going to find another minyan, he continues up the stairs on his way to the yeshiva. So one of the people with him turns to him and says, Rebbe, why are we going to yeshiva? Why don't we continue walking? Why don't we continue walking to another minyan? And he says, davening with a minyan is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. It's rabbinic, you're supposed to daven with a minyan, but it's not anywhere in the Torah that you have to. However, saying Shavua Tov to somebody and making them feel better about themselves, that's a mitzvah d'Oraisa, that's a mitzvah from the Torah. I'm not willing to forego that mitzvah. So that's what he did. He said Shavua Tov to all the students after they finished davening, and it was a very easy thing for him to do, but it made a big difference for everyone. So I think in our lives there are many things that we can add, which are very easy for us, which we don't even realize how beneficial they are for other people. But if we take the time to do those things, I think that will be step number one towards improving Ahavas Yisrael. Saying a good morning, a good Shabbos, those types of things are very easy. but unfortunately they are often overlooked. Story number 2 is a story I heard this past week. It's a very, very beautiful story. The story goes as follows. In New Square, on a Motzei Shabbos, hundreds of Hasidim line up to talk to the Rebbe. They want to wish the Rebbe Shavua Tov, a good vach. They want to ask the Rebbe for a bracha. And one Motzei Shabbos, as always, there are hundreds of New Square Hasidim lined up waiting for the Rebbe, all in their Hasidish uniform, with the Bekasha and the Streimel and everything. And in the line there was a boy wearing khaki pants and a polo shirt and a kippah sruga. He seemed to be a little bit out of place, but no one said anything. He was just standing there waiting his turn. Finally, his turn gets to comes. He gets to the front, and he approaches the Rebbe and he says, "Rebbe, can the Rebbe daven for Baruch ben Bela?" So the Rebbe closes his eyes and davens. And after about 15-20 seconds of davening, he opens his eyes and says, "Anything else?" And he says, "No, that's it." So the boy departs. He leaves. As he's going towards his car, the Gabbai, who was with the Rebbe at the time, runs after him and says, Rabbi Yid, wait, stop." The boy doesn't think he's talking to him, so he keeps on going. Rabbi Yid, stop. So he turns around, he hears someone screaming, turns around, and it's the Gabbai coming towards him and says, "Who's Baruch ben Bela?" So he tells him, he says, I was a counselor in Camp Hask, and I had a camper. He can't really walk, he can't talk, he doesn't hear well, and it was his birthday, and I thought to myself, what can I get him? I can't get him an iPod, he can't really hear. I can't get him a basketball, he can't really throw. I can't get him new sneakers, he can't really walk or run. But I remember he's a New Square Chassid, so I said I'll get him a bracha from his Rebbe, because he loved his Rebbe so much. So that's Baruch ben Bela, he was my camper. At this moment, the Gabbai starts crying, and now the boy says, well, "Why are you crying? Why are you so emotional?" And he says, "Because Baruch ben Bela is my son, and that's the nicest gift anyone's ever given him." And at that point, these two men embraced, and it wasn't a boy with khaki pants and a polo shirt and a kippah srugat, or a chassid with a bekasha and a streimel. It was two Jews hugging each other, true love emitting from the both of them. Hopefully this year we will be able to reach that level of ahavas chinam, where we have true love for one another, and that we no longer have to suffer without the Beis HaMikdash. I hope everyone here has a wonderful, meaningful Tisha B'Av.